Live from New Hampshire, it's time for the Science Cafe!
Learn about the latest technologic innovations today.
And you don't have to pay.
Expert panels with advanced degrees are sure to satisfy your curiosity.
Since we mention it's free.
And if you think you'll find a better time than this, then come on down and test your hypothesis. Cause you're gonna learn a lot if you wanna stay down at the Science Cafe.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Science Cafe. Tonight's topic, as I think you all know, is a meditation. My name is Rick. Normally, Dan Marchak runs the Science Cafes, but he is on vacation this week. Dan is actually the co-founder of Science Cafe of New Hampshire, and he's been doing this for 9 years. He just passed his 9-year anniversary a couple of months ago. What's going to happen tonight is I'll introduce the panel, then we'll go to allow them to talk about their background. We'll go to questions and answers. We will pass the beaker at halftime, so around 7 o'clock we will stop and pass the beaker around for donations if you so choose. On my right, Lonnie Hermann, a Reiki master and teacher of spiritual hypnosis at the New Hampshire Health and Wellness Center here in Nashua.
And that's Lois.
Lois. Sorry. Romy Valdez from the Center of Psychological Health and Well-Being. And Jay Gupta, who's been actually around, done quite a bit of talking and traveling around the world. So we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say as well. So thank you. We will be roaming around for questions. And please, if the panel would just go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us about your background.
And I am a board-certified hypnotist. So I have a different take on meditation. It's more about self-hypnosis type of getting into trance. My background is 40 years in diagnostics. I retired after a fabulous career in ultrasound. I learned hypnosis almost 30 years ago to help myself and my children through a really tough emotional time. And it really worked. I was working for Hewlett-Packard at the time, and I was so fascinated by how well it worked for me in my corporate world that my peers would say, I got to get on a plane, I'm scared to death, or I've been biting my nails. I was scheduling conference rooms at lunch, helping people to get over whatever it was, and I was fascinated. And I knew one day when I retired that I wanted to pursue this full time. So I retired about 7 years ago, started a private practice. My practice is in the Telegraph building just a block away. And love, love, love helping people to change their mind by changing their mindset. So power of the mind is amazing. Thank you for having me.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jay Gupta. I'm actually a drug dealer. I don't know why I got invited, but Scott somehow knew. So right now I'm director of pharmacy at Harbor Homes, where we serve people who are experiencing homelessness. And I volunteered with Nashua Mental Health Center also for about 3.5 years. So my experience growing up in India was mostly with yoga. And many of you might already know this, that meditation is part of yoga. There are many varieties of yoga. So it's such an ancient science. So in the modern world, when we say we are doing meditation, my understanding is we are trying to reach that state of meditation. Meditation is not an action we do. It's a state we try to achieve. And how I got really interested in pharmaceuticals was, why I went to pharmacy school was because I was very intrigued by these chemicals. You know, the little pills change the chemistry of the body and they can fix our pains and aches and heal us. And before that, I had experience with yoga, which did almost the same thing. So what I'm going to try to talk to you about is, and you're welcome to argue with me on that, we can have a good discussion, that yoga and meditation actually change the chemistry of the body. So they change the chemistry of the body just like medications do. So anybody who is linguist here, I don't know how they came up with these two words, meditation and medication. Only difference is one letter, C and T. So it has been a long, exciting journey. I travel throughout the country and teach in many, many places. But my biggest passion is to serve the underserved population. So we teach free yoga classes, about 15 of them every week, with our nonprofit called Yoga Caps. So those classes are absolutely free of charge, and we teach them in mostly hospitals. So for cancer patients, we have, I think, 5 classes every week. So Southern New Hampshire, St. Joe's, and Elliott Hospital, 2 locations, as well as Catholic Medical Center in Manchester. We teach a free class at Merrimack Senior Center as well.
Before I get started, I'd just like to ask all of you to gently close your eyes right now and take a deep inhale through your nose and exhale. Inhale again and exhale. Inhale one more time. Hold the breath. And this time exhale through your mouth. I'm Romy Valdez. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I received my training at Dartmouth and Harvard Medical School's Department of Psychiatry. But I've been a student of religious studies since my undergraduate days at the University of Vermont, where my focus really was on Eastern religions, and very interested in the practice of meditation and yoga. So I've been doing meditation for many, many, many years. I don't want to give away my age here. I have also, in my training as a psychologist, have always been interested in how to integrate the ancient arts and science of yoga and meditation with traditional psychotherapy. I'm a Kundalini yoga instructor, certified. I also have become very interested in sound therapy and how the vibrations of not just our voices or musical instruments, but of very ancient healing instruments like the gongs, the Tibetan singing bowls, and instruments like that, and how that affects our body, and how that affects changes in our body chemistry. So I've been practicing psychology now for about 34 years. I'm the co-founder of the Center for Psychological Health and Well-Being in Amherst, New Hampshire, and my other half is at the bar there, Danielle. If you could just wave your hand. And she's there with our daughter, Marianne. You want to wave, Marianne? So we co-founded this center where our basic mission really is to help people have a better understanding of their life circumstances and to find skillful ways to find happiness and well-being in their lives. So we do that through a variety of means. We have several other practitioners there that practice psychotherapy, along with things like dialectic behavioral therapy, which is an offshoot of meditation. We have a functional nutritionist there. Danielle is studying the psychology of eating, and we'll be having some workshops about that. I'll be starting a ongoing meditation therapy group for anxiety and depression. And also, we have once a month what we call Second Sunday Sound Therapy, which is a combination of movement, mantra, some gentle yoga, and sound therapy through the gongs. So that's me. So I think we're opening it up for questions now.
Regarding hypnosis, is it true that there are some people that you can't hypnotize?
Absolutely. If you don't want to be. Anybody who wants to be hypnotized can absolutely be hypnotized. It's about the power of suggestion, the power of the mind. So the more analytical you are, the easier it is to go into trance because you're in control. I'm the guide as you go into your hypnotic trance, into your journey. So there, the categories for those who truly can't be hypnotized is one is if you're inebriated, forget it. Two, depending upon if you have, I've worked with Down's syndrome people, different types of IQ levels. Some of the people who cannot track with me have a hard time. But the other one truly is when a husband comes and says, my wife wants you to make me quit smoking, I say, there's the door. The person has to want to change, and I am just the coach for them to facilitate the change in their mind.
Mine's fairly simple. Exactly what is a functional dietitian?
Functional nutritionist takes a look at bodily functioning and how you're actually eating and what kinds of foods that you can eat. Danielle actually would be better to answer that question, but she's not up here. So, but you're welcome to ask her after we're done. So,
have there been any studies about taking a population and saying we're going to do meditation now for a while and mapping the treatment results, and then we're going to try medication or vice versa for things like anxiety, depression?
So you're talking about head-on clinical trials with medicines. Very exciting. I hope it will start happening soon. So I actually was in California a couple of weeks back, and I talked about there's a new concept called de-prescription. How many of you have heard about de-prescription? 2, 1.5 maybe. So I was in the room full of 450 people, and we had only 2 people who raised their hands there as well. So de-prescription is a very scientific approach to reduce or taper off the medications for people. So it started in Canada many years back, and there are a lot of studies they are doing. They're not using integrative health practices like yoga, meditation, hypnosis, diet, nutrition, no. What they are finding is a lot of people take medicines which they don't need. They say seniors, 65 plus, at least they on an average in America, every senior takes at least one medicine which they don't need. So we need to taper those medications off. So they're creating de-prescribing protocols. In my practice, we have seen a lot of people able to reverse their disease conditions. So if you can manage your disease condition, change the chemistry of the body yourself, you don't need the medicine anymore. So I hope we'll have those head-on trials eventually, but right now I think people are very scared, all the scientists, because the money comes from the pharmaceutical companies so much. Yeah. So we don't have head-on trials. I will add one thing though, there are a bunch of studies happening right here at Harvard, at MGH, where they found the brain size, the frontal cortex of the brain increases in size with 8 weeks of meditation. Anybody heard of those?
Yeah, that one I've heard of.
So imagine the size of the brain which shrinks as we age actually starts to expand. And they also found that another part of the brain called amygdala, it shrinks. And it shrank within 8 weeks of meditation. Okay, so there are a lot of physical changes which can happen in the brain. And of course, chemically we know, as soon as we start moving from stress response of sympathetic nervous system, we start moving towards parasympathetic. That's very easy to monitor. There's another study on, many studies on telomeres. Anybody knows about telomeres? Somebody does, good, a couple of people. So telomeres are the end of the chromosomes. They're the genetic material. They're like end of the shoelaces. Okay, so every time a cell divides into 2, those ends, the telomeres, they become a little smaller. They become shorter. Over a period of time, this is how we age, because the telomeres are becoming smaller and smaller. So what they found, people who meditate, telomerase, the enzyme telomerase becomes higher in levels, and the telomeres don't shorten as much as they happen in non-meditators. So it's kind of an anti-aging medicine.
And especially as we seem to be having kind of a epidemic of anxiety in adolescents, So you would recommend you would not recommend meditation in addition to medication? No, you would not. Okay.
All right. So it's a loaded question, and
I'm
my
sorry.
answer is, so her question is, meditation, can it help with all the patients of anxiety? Answer is no. So the way we look at yoga, meditation, and all the integrative health practices, we think like they're going to save the whole world. What we do not realize when we make a claim that this works like a medicine, these practices also have side effects. These practices also have contraindications. So people who have very high level of anxiety, they might actually freak out. They may not even close their eyes. People with PTSD, people who are experiencing homelessness, their whole system is on hyperdrive so much that they will not be able to meditate. And when they try to meditate, it's very frustrating instead of helping them. So what I call it is the way we have drug-drug interactions, drug-disease interactions, we also have drug and yoga interactions. So some people who are taking certain medications should not be meditating. So a lot of work to be done.
To answer your question about research, there was actually a study last year at Johns Hopkins which looked at the relationship between mindfulness meditation and the reduction of symptoms of depression and anxiety and pain versus an antidepressant. And the results were the same. So they got the same positive results for meditation as they did with antidepressants. Meditation is basically training the mind to do what you want it to do and not the other way around. And that's what, we're trying to do with meditation and yoga.
A lot of my clients come to me and they say they can't meditate. They've tried, they can't meditate. But they can do hypnosis. The difference is with a coach, with a guide, they can let go and allow their mind to be redirected. It's about the neuropathways. So we have neuropathways that we've been going down the same pattern, the same habit, the same thought process over and over. To try to shift it on your own is oftentimes difficult. It's kind of like trying to blaze a new path through the forest. It's much more comfortable to go down the existing path, even if it doesn't take you where you want to go. But to try and blaze a new path takes a little bit more effort. So with the assistance with self-hypnosis, you're training the mind to go down this new neural pathway, which then makes it easier for the person to meditate. Does this make sense? So everything with hypnosis is truly self-hypnosis. So there's a lot of misnomers about hypnosis. And I want you to understand they're tied in together. With both meditation and hypnosis, you relax the body, you quiet the mind. With meditation, you tend to allow your mind to free associate. And that's where a lot of people have difficulty in training the mind. With hypnosis, it's different. It's a hyper-focusing. You're able to really nail something. And therefore, you can retrain your mind much quicker using self-hypnosis techniques that ultimately get you into the path of true meditation.
So following up on what Dr. Valdez just said, there does seem to be a significant change recently with interest in these topics and great science coming out. And I'm wondering how much of that is related to expanded use of functional MRIs and PET scanners to look at what's going on up here.
Well, those studies really do use all that technology. So I'm sure that's part of it. The other part of it is there's just such great interest in the subjective results of people doing yoga and meditation for many, many years. When I was working with veterans at the VA, there were veterans who, some of them, these very big, strong guys, kind of riding their Harleys and saying, "I'll never do yoga." And they're showing up at my yoga class because their primary care physician says you've got to do yoga because it's going to be helpful to you. And they became the greatest converts to the practice. There were some Vietnam War veterans that reported not having slept for 35 or 40 years very well. And once they started yoga, meditation, and sound therapy, they were able to start getting a good night's sleep. So there's all of that subjective experiences that people are reporting that resulted in the researchers saying, hey, there's got to be something to this.
I too have worked with veterans who don't want to be medicated for their PTSD, and they've come to me and said, I have this stuff going around in my mind. I want a quiet mind. Help me to calm my mind. Get rid of some of these things that come from what they've been through. But again, it's the power of the mind. Whatever tool you use, be it yoga, be it meditation, be it hypnosis, it's about reprogramming the mind instead of reaching for the medication. Meditation. Using your analogy, medication versus meditation. Using the power of the mind to shift actually makes a huge difference. There's so many different ways. There's the walking tree meditation. The Japanese do the garden meditation. There's so many. The Native Americans use drumming as a meditation. It doesn't have to be a specific. It's about what works for you and your body to get out of this monkey mind that we are inundated with in our media. So to get in, find what works for you. Some of us that are dancers, dance is a wonderful form of escape, of getting into the body-mind and shifting the negative energy, the negative mind talk. I have just released a book. It's coming out. Actually, my big book release party is next week, and it was channeled information from an amazing client on how we, as a society, need to change our energy. We must change our energy, shift it to a higher vibrational energy by shifting our thoughts, shifting our actions, shifting where we place our energy. So all of this works. We just have to find what works for us as unique individuals.
Please tell me what hypnosis, meditation, and yoga can do to help cancer patients, either for remissions or for pain management. I've also heard that there's a Chinese practice that called Tong Ren that might be of benefit to cancer patients. I'm wondering what you can tell me about that.
My experience with cancer patients, and I work, the partners that I work with at the New Hampshire Health and Wellness Center are two naturopathic doctors, a functional dietitian, a holistic nurse. We have our magnet protocol specialist. One of the issues that we deal with a lot is Lyme recovery. And Lyme and cancer and any sort of debilitating disease needs all parts of body, mind, and spirit to engage for the healing process. So there are methods you can take to heal the body, but if the mind is in fear, if the mind is embracing what they've read online, the statistics, it causes them to go down the path of, oh my goodness, this is not going to work. But if we can get them to shift the mind toward the positive, toward the opportunity for healing, amazing healing happens. It's all about using that mind power, shifting the energy into one of peace and serenity that will allow the body to work. We were talking about anxiety and disorders earlier. When you're tense like this, the body can't flow. So even the Tong Ren, all of these different techniques help us to relax our body so that the body can heal and do what it does naturally anyway. We all have cancer cells within us. It takes an aberration to cause them to proliferate. So as we train our bodies and our minds to go back into a to state, and we can I use a cell command therapy where you command the cells to reset to your original DNA. So as the person resets their mind and body and expects a positive outcome, it shifts. A lot of these disease processes affect our emotional bodies. And we have an expectation based on, well, I have this is in my genes. There are so many people who rise above that based on the power of what they decide, not what the gene decides.
So we started teaching yoga for cancer patients about 12 years back at Elliott Hospital, and then we just started CMC. So So we have seen a lot of people with cancer. The biggest benefit is after radiation therapy or surgery, the scar tissues. So if you continue to move the body, they're going through the physical therapy that helps in fixing the physical aspect of that quicker. The biggest issue because of cancer and also the chemotherapy, all the treatments of cancer, is the fatigue. So yoga and meditation help with the fatigue level big time. Depression, anxiety, insomnia, anything caused by stress. We have seen a lot of weight loss in people. So there are a lot of things which we have seen reversing. That's how I got into it more. When I saw people were coming off their medications, that's when I got excited. In the beginning, I was just teaching for the sake of serving the community. It was free classes. We just wanted to serve. And when I saw people coming off the medicine, I was like, oh gosh, we are onto something. 10 years back, yoga in a hospital was a big deal. We did not have yoga in hospital or healthcare systems at that time. But now it is proliferating. MD Anderson Institute in Texas, I heard they're doing a clinical trial stage 3. And in stage 3 clinical trial, they have 3 groups. One is a wait-listed group who is not doing any exercise. The second one is a group who is doing regular exercise, aerobic workout. And the third group is a yoga group. So they're checking a lot of markers, but the biggest marker which I remember right now, the study I don't think is complete yet. So what they're studying is the level of cortisol in the saliva. So they're checking cortisol level 5 times a day. So what they found is people who are going through same treatment for breast cancer, their cortisol level is very high if they're not exercising. People who are doing aerobic workout, their cortisol level is lower. But the yoga group, their cortisol level drastically gets lowered as soon as they start to do the practice. So throughout the day, our cortisol level goes up and down. That's why they're checking it 5 times a day. And then there is a residual effect. So if my cortisol level goes down right now, and if I continue doing yoga, or I stop doing yoga, there's a residual effect, so cortisol level will stay lower. From the research perspective, I think we are still at a baby stage. Because until year 2000, like in the whole century last year, we had very small number of studies. We have already done more studies in last 19 years with yoga and meditation. And as a pharmacist, when I'm analyzing those studies, I think the quality is not good. But guess what? There's no money. The amount of money we spend for one molecule, for one drug, we are spending fraction of that. I don't remember the numbers, but I would be surprised if it is more than 1%, which we are spending for all integrative health practices all over the country.
Everything sounds amazing. We came because we're more intrigued by meditation and we don't really do it yet. But if you could back up to square one, maybe some recommendations or suggestions how to get started, or what the first thing we should be doing, like taking a class or reading a book or just trying it on our own.
I'll put a plug in for my practice. So check out my website. Offer meditation. We'll be offering a meditation group there. There's also just so many meditation groups right here in Nashua. At the UU Church here in Nashua, there's a meditation class on Tuesday or Wednesday nights. Wednesdays, okay. And it's Shambhala. It's from the Shambhala tradition. In Milford, there is a meditation class on Wednesdays again, run by a friend of mine, Delia Costner, who teaches the Theravadan approach of meditation. And there's numerous other drop-in classes that you could go to. So, like Jay said, you should try them out, see which group you feel most comfortable in, and give it a shot. You'll feel much better.
Romy, you mentioned the Christian tradition and the Christian meditations, and the chanting, of course, goes back well before Gregorian chants. But there's also the Kabbalah of the Jews, and the Islamic tradition, which is actually more modern, but the Arab tradition is ancient. And they're not all from the Middle East. Some of them are from the Western and Eastern Europe. Some of them are as modern as the Holocaust, the chanting and we have some of them from survivors of the camps. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about how Western meditation influences the healing of the body and the mind.
So thank you for asking that question. I mentioned briefly that meditation does not belong just to Eastern part of the planet. Every tradition for thousands of years. So let me go back few steps and share with you what I think meditation is. Meditation is kind of a coping mechanism at our level in the modern times so that we can jump over our intellectual thinking mind. Mind's job is very simple, right? It keeps thinking non-stop. Okay? Now that can be very tiring. That can exhaust a lot of energy. So how does the body cope with it? By sleeping. So we are designed as human beings to be sleeping 1/3 of our life. Everybody knows that? And when we can't sleep, there's a problem. So meditation is a conscious effort. In sleep, we are not aware of it. We just collapse, we crash, and in sleep also the mind is still active. We are dreaming, the brain is defragging stuff, filing the memories and whatnot. So there's a lot of physiological and physical work happening at that time. In meditation, we achieve similar state, as Romy just mentioned, that with Gong you can achieve the alpha or theta stage, you can even go down to delta stage. We are achieving the same thing in sleep also. But in meditation, you're fully aware of that. So one of the goals personally for me in my own practice, on my own meditation practice, is to jump over this thinking mind. Some people will say, I want to control my mind. People control their minds in meditation, right? Anybody heard that before? Anybody tried to do that? Is it good? Why is it not good? Mind keeps getting. The biggest problem is who is controlling who. So one part of the mind becomes the dictator, controller, other part becomes the victim. So you're creating a schizophrenic personality by trying to control the mind. We don't want to control it, we want to get over it, we want to jump over it. So there's a whole life with the subconscious mind and unconscious mind which we can tap with these practices. So all over the planet, in every culture, every religion, I am sure people had those practices. Whether it was in the form of hypnosis, chanting, singing, listening to nature sounds, even listening to the body sounds. We have a lot of sounds within the body. We don't hear them unless they make a lot of sound. So there's so many practices. I mean, I can't even count them right now. There's so many practices out there. That's why I strongly recommend, if you've never tried it, start doing it. Go to different teachers, different classes, and I'm sure you're going to fall in love with at least one of the practices.
They say that hypnosis originated in the pyramids in Egypt with the sleep chambers. People would be in a sleep state, or the theta state, just before you fall asleep, and the priestesses or whatever would chant or would program the person who was in that sleep chamber. So this is nothing new. None of this is new. Even the sound healing, this is not new. We're just now starting to put parameters around it. Many of what we're talking about is very ancient. It's just being reintroduced to modern society.
It's like Jay said, meditation doesn't belong to any tradition at all. It's been around for ever since man existed. So I hope you didn't feel slighted by the fact that we're focusing so much on the Eastern traditions, because it's really not the case. I mean, there's the whole contemplative practice of the Desert Fathers, Thomas Merton, and his work. So, thank you for the question. That was good.
I've tried meditation before. I had a great app, Insight Timer. I don't know if you know that one. But I never stick with it. And someone mentioned to me that you can do walking meditation, which to me, since I have trouble sitting still, sounds perfect. Is that would you get the same benefits from walking meditation that you're talking about? Or is that really not something that would work? But if you can you give us some pointers on how to, I'm not sure how to get into it while you're walking?
Personally, I love technology, but I'm not a big fan of any of these apps. I tried them just to see what they contain. So walking meditations, sitting in lotus pose or sitting up in the air, all those things are not really very, very important. My formula, my prescription with meditation is relaxed and focused. When you're relaxed and you're focused, meditation will happen to you. So personally, I find walking meditation might be even more complicated because you are more distracted. You will not be able to focus as much. So try maybe at bedtime, try to, relax at that time. But as we all three of us mentioned several times, try different teachers. You can learn from the technology, but there is no substitute for working with a teacher because teacher would be able to adjust the practice just for you.
It's focused attention to achieve heightened awareness and to calm that monkey mind. No matter what you're doing, I had a very good friend who was into dance as meditation. And she would use veils, and she could play any sort of music that made her move. And just that act of moving got her out of, oh my God, I got to do this tomorrow. So the whole concept is to shift into a more peaceful mind, whatever it takes. If it means walking through the woods, it's not walking through the woods thinking about what you've got to do. It's walking through the woods and looking at the green of that tree or watching for the birds. It's about being present, teaching yourself to be present now. And the meditation, your meditation could maybe even be 5 minutes in the morning before you get out of bed, setting your intention for the day, allowing your mind to be at a calmer state. Then we're so bombarded, as we were talking earlier, with all the technology and all of the busy. Meditation can be as simple as escape from our modern technology, taking a sabbatical from the cell phones and from all of that distraction, and allowing yourself just to breathe, to be, and to enjoy. It is said we are human beings, not human doings. We're often out there trying to do. And the concept of meditation, no matter what, is about learning to be.
Just to add to that, meditation happens in all sorts of different ways. For those of you that are athletes, I'm sure that if you're a tennis player, you've probably experienced a certain amount, or a golf player, a certain amount of meditation when you're in the flow. You look at professional athletes, like just recently was the Stanley Cup playoffs, and you watch the Bruins goalie, Tuukka Rask. That guy was really in the zone. His concentration was there, heightened awareness. He was aware of where the puck was at all times. Right, Jeremy? So, you see it all the time. You can experience it yourself from, the things that you do, from walking in the woods, from forest bathing, or playing tennis, or playing golf. As long as you're doing that focused and heightened awareness, that's meditation.
With all of the stuff that you guys do to help, reduce stress and all that, do you use any of the adaptogens along with the therapy? And the adaptogens are basically not the stuff that you had along with the TM back in the 60s. This is more natural, ginseng, rhodiola, plant-based chemicals that are shown to reduce cortisol levels and help with stress.
As a pharmacist, I give too many chemicals from outside anyway. I'm already doing that. With yoga and meditation, what I am hoping for myself and for my friends, my people around me, how do we shift from this outside-in approach to inside-out approach? We are so dependent right now that something from outside is going to fix me. We have so much power inside us, we are not harvesting it enough. So how can I empower my own body, my own energy level, my own mind, all the faculties of my being as a human? That's what excites me as a scientist. And I know there's power. I need food. I need different kinds of food. But how many people experiment with fasting? Because when we talk about 5 elements of nature, creating that space, taking a break for the digestive system. So everybody's an expert telling me what to eat, what not to eat. Take this supplement and that supplement, and this supplement is better than another supplement. Too much marketing, too much sales out there. So I'm not criticizing them. I'm not saying that don't take your supplements. Those supplements, those adaptogens, those herbs also interact with medicines. They also affect your chemistry of the body. A lot of people take a lot of medications. I've seen people taking 15, 20, 30 medications a day, but they're also health freaks, so they're taking a fistful of supplements at the same time without realizing what the drug interactions are there. So personally, I'm taking a little extreme approach. What can I do as a simple practice? I call them yoga capsules. That's why how we coined our nonprofit as Yoga Caps. What can I do in 3 minutes, 2 minutes, maybe 1 minute, which will give me this desired effect? So when people say meditation, what is your goal of meditation? Is your goal to walk? Is your goal to relax? Is your goal to improve your ADHD? Is your goal to energize yourself? Because somebody who has high level of depression, but somebody also has insomnia, same medicines don't work. You need different medicines, so you need different kind of yoga or meditation practice depending on what you're looking for.
The deep gong meditation that I do with participants, the major emphasis is learning from the teacher within, because I believe that we have all that we need to heal from that's already inside of us, that can be tapped into by certain practices, certain teachers. But that's what we're learning from, is this teacher within each one of us. I'd just like to take a moment now and just ask all of you to pay attention to how you're breathing. You don't have to close your eyes, but just pay attention to how you're breathing right now. Are you breathing comfortably? Do you notice whether your breath is shallow, whether it's deep? This practice itself is called conscious breathing. And if you do this practice at any time during the day, you'll learn a lot of what's happening to you as an individual. You know, if you're going into a meeting where you have to present, pay attention to how you're breathing. And if you find yourself doing some shallow breathing because you're anxious, then change your breath. Or if you're very tired at work after sitting at the computer all day long or whatever you're doing, pay attention to how you're breathing. And maybe you need an energizing breath. Now, all of that is part of meditation. You're changing your energy to maximize what you need at that particular moment.
One of the things that, following on what Romy was saying, is when you're thinking about breathing, I have a lot of clients that come to me who are anxious, and when I talk to them about their breathing, realize that we have more than just one part to our lungs. Most people, when they're anxious, are only breathing with the center part of their lungs. For those of us who've been through, birthing a baby, it's that transition. And then you have to learn to relax and breathe into all of your lungs. There's lungs up here in your shoulders, up by your shoulders. There's lungs that go all the way down your back. And when you learn to take the belly breath, which basically causes you to breathe down the back, what happens is that the vagus nerve runs along your diaphragm. And when you take a deep breath in, basically it activates the vagus nerve, which releases endorphins, which causes you to relax. So part of it is you're getting more oxygen in your body, which gives you more alertness, but it also changes the chemical constituents in your body. When you take a full-on breath, these nice, deep, relaxing breaths absolutely change the physiology of your body. So I know there's Qigong exercises in the Oriental tradition that's focusing totally on just breathing. There's so many different ways of breathing. Find what works for you. Just get out of that shallow breathing and use your whole body, your whole being.
Romy, for Kundalini, what does that specifically help? Does it energize? Does it relax? I've done it once and I was unsure.
Oh.
So I'm just curious how I was.
It depends. The Kundalini Yoga is based on a series of exercises that focuses on a particular issue. So depending on what class you went to, the teacher might focus on something having to do with your adrenals or something, or your pituitary gland, or depression. Or so the series of exercises are focusing on a particular issue.
And that would be something they would normally state prior to.
Yeah, they would tell you what the name of the kriya is.
Sure, okay.
Kriya means exercise.
Correct, yeah.
So they would tell you what it is and what it's doing.
And in Kundalini, do they use the gongs at all every time, or is it a different?
It depends on the teacher.
Okay.
Some teachers use it at the end of the class for shavasana.
Okay, thank you.
But it depends on the teacher
Thank
whether
you.
they play gong or
And
not.
I had a question for you, Jay.
Let me add something to
Yes,
this.
sure.
So this is a modern version of Kundalini practice. So I wanted to give you a perspective about Tantra, which is considered the mother of yoga. So it's like tens of thousands of years old practice, right? So scientifically, what I understand about Kundalini is understanding of matter and energy. So we learned about 100 years back from Dr. Einstein that matter and energy are interconvertible. So this is what we are dwelling with. This is what we want to experience right now in the body. But Kundalini science takes it to the third level, which we still do not understand in the scientific realm as much. It's called consciousness. So the goal of Kundalini Yoga or Kundalini Tantra is the unity of energy and consciousness. So that's the big goal over there. So when you reach that stage, all other physical, mental, the physiological problems, they all start to melt away as well.
Okay.
It's a two-part question. So one is, in the practice of yoga or meditation, is it better, or is there really a difference in group meditation versus individual meditation? Does it impact your body differently? And the second part of the question is, I heard a couple mentions of side effects. And what would some of the side effects of meditation be? And would those change whether or not you're in a group setting or an individual setting?
The power of the group is pretty amazing because of the energy that happens in the room when everybody is breathing together, moving together, chanting together, all as one. So everyone is moving into the same frequency. So that's very powerful, but it's really a combination of doing it individually as a daily practice and hopefully getting together with a group of people in what's called a sangha, because community is very important in any practice, whether it's yoga, meditation, because that's where you learn from other people, you have the community support, and you have the desire to keep wanting to come back because you see familiar faces and you're going through the same thing. And as far as the side effects, certainly it's important to begin the practice, particularly meditation, slowly, so that you're meditating, if you're meditating without any apps at all, and just using the breath, to start with 5 minutes a day, then 10 minutes a day, then work your way up, because like Jay was saying, things come up once you're very still and your mind is very still. So all sorts of memories may come up, both good and bad. So it's just important to be aware of that.
For hypnosis, in a therapeutic session, it's best to do one-on-one because I can tailor the session to your specific needs and be very mindful of what's going on in your mind and as you're tapping into possibly some regression to a root cause, a problem. So from a therapeutic perspective, individual is better. The group sessions are great for support for a guided imagery like this, which is wonderful. But I would not take one, for instance, to a past life or to the origin of a problem in a group session. That needs to be very individualized and very tailored. And there's something that is known as the Herxheimer effect. Have you heard of that? Any sort of practice that you're taking to change your physiology, there is a reaction to that change that is sometimes it feels like illness, but it's really a righting of the energy in your body. There's actually a technical term for that shift that happens when you're undertaking to a new healthy practice.
I listened to, it was called progressive relaxation before going to bed many times. And what happened was I started to fall asleep in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. Is that good or bad?
That's normal. That's natural. That means that you're relaxed. Your subconscious mind is, if there are suggestions to that progressive relaxation. For instance, I have several that I sell online. One is Think Yourself Trim. One is Release the Discomfort, Release the Pain. Another is Incredible Confidence. So as my clients fall asleep, as they listen to this, their subconscious is still breathing for them, beating their heart. It is still taking in that information. So even though you're falling asleep, you're still reprogramming yourself for whatever the positive aspect of that mindfulness meditation is.
I came to the understanding that meditation, maybe as beginning or basic, was that, like you said, the monkey mind, and just letting your thoughts go and kind of just letting them run. So maybe kind of making an acceptance, having an acceptance with it. So my question is that, can you speak to resistance? Because I think that's, you've kind of touched upon it, but you talk about meditation as relaxing or focusing, and to me that seems more of a letting go. So if you could just tell me what you think about resistance.
Certainly, the monkey mind is always there, and the practice that I do really focuses on one thing only, and that's the breath. And so each time that your mind gets distracted away from the breath, you tell it to go back to the breath. It's just like training a wild animal or a puppy. You train it to stay, you train it to sit, you train it to do all those things. And so you're using the breath because it's with you all the time as a way to train your mind to do what you want it to do. And that way, you're going to run into distraction all the time. It's very difficult to focus on one thing only. So you focus on the breath, you focus on different parts of your body, you focus on whole body breathing, you focus on breathing in part of your body that's uncomfortable. So you're doing all sorts of things, but you're focusing just on one thing only.
So just to add to what Romy said, the whole idea is that we stay in the present, right? If you give one task to the mind, it's not going to do it. Okay, we are trained in a way that we have to do multitasking, right? And we actually glorify multitasking. In meditation, that's not a good idea. So when you're focusing on the body, doing the progressive muscle relaxation, watching the breath, we call it anapan, any of these practices, the goal is to stay in the present. And if it's a moving target, mind actually likes it. If you give it a fixed point, it's harder for the mind. So moving target as a beginner practice is much more easier. So see what fits for you. Eventually you can even watch your own thoughts. Okay, oh my God, I'm now thinking about this. I'm thinking about this person. And normally people we don't like, we think about those people more than the people who we love. So when you catch yourself, that's why mindfulness became so popular. Just the word itself, because it is more secular. It doesn't have that Buddhist, although the practices came from Buddhism, so it's very secular, but just the word itself is very powerful. That you're thinking about, you're mindful of what is going on right now. Right now I can say I'm mindful that my left hand is moving for no reason, while my right hand is holding the microphone. It's just subconscious behavior, right? So becoming aware of that opens up the consciousness. it expands the consciousness. So we are moving towards meditation.
Thank you all for being here this evening and asking all those incredible questions. And also thank you to Steve and Jane for having me here. And thank you, too, for being here, too. It's nice to see Jay.
Well, thank you. It was just wonderful group. I mean, questions were amazing. So thank you so much for those who asked the questions and those who listened to all our talks as well.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you for allowing me to be here to share with this panel. And I am on a mission of hope for humanity. My book is called The Chronicles of Hope, and it is from the ancient ones, the first ones, who are saying we must change now or we may not have much time left. My mission is to get the word out that we are not competing. We must come together, cooperate, collaborate. We do have the power to make this world into a paradise. Together we can.
Well, yes. Thank you very much. That was very informative and very interesting, which is exactly what we're trying to accomplish with the Science Cafe. So thank the panel again, please.